LeBron James and winning another title and all that stuff. Does this help his legacy in terms of in that GOAT status, in terms of the greatest of all times and stuff like that? You know, he's got 4 rings now, all that stuff. So what do you guys think about him winning this title? Does it push him towards that GOAT status?
Take it away, Clark.
I mean, I personally don't really have much to say on this topic, and the main reason is I don't see why it wouldn't help his status. I mean, why winning a championship would hurt more than help? To me, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that winning a 4th championship, I mean, yeah, it's within a certain amount of of tries or years, but I don't see why it wouldn't help him to get to that or build his legacy. I mean, there's no possible reason that I could come up with, or that probably not anyone could convince me that this hurts him more than it helps him. So personally, I think it helps him. I think it does help him with his legacy, and with the mentions he'll be getting after his career is ended.
So let me pick it up exactly where you left off. And here's where I sort of have a little bit of trouble with, because I've been known as the #1 LeBron basher since day one. And I have no problem in admitting that. But I also respect the guy's game, right? And I respect what he's done for basketball on and off the court.
Yeah, for sure.
If you don't acknowledge that, then don't bother watching the game, because then you're just being completely biased. And I'm a Jordan guy. So I'm not going to do that whole GOAT conversation right now, because you just said it, and this is where I'm going to pick it up. His career is not done yet. Like, his story has not been finalized. Like, his story is still to be written. LeBron James, the way he treats his body, the way he trains, the way he thinks, and who knows, maybe he'll be on another team in 2 years from now. Like, he can play another 5-6 years at the rate that he is going physically, right? Like, we don't know. Now, an injury can pop up here and there in the next year and a half or so, and you never want that to happen to any great player, let alone any player. But I don't understand why his legacy wasn't ever in question when he has already won. Like, it doesn't make any sense, because if winning a championship is basically what makes you part of a conversation of being great or being accomplished, then he's already done that. This could not hurt him for sure, but it doesn't need to help him. Like, if LeBron James lost his series to the Miami Heat, yes, he would have been criticized for losing and being now, I guess, 3-7 instead of 4-6, right? But there's still 3 championships, right? Barkley has 0 and he's in the Hall of Fame. So and there's a lot of guys that have 0 championships and they're in the Hall of Fame. So to me, we have to stop doing this whole comparison thing, because Jordan didn't play with LeBron. You know, Jordan didn't play with Bill Russell, right? There's eras, and you can argue that LeBron James is the most dominant player of this era, right? But we'll never know where his legacy stands until his actual career is done. So I think it's way too soon for that, and I think he still has a lot of things to accomplish, and he might end up being the guy at the end of the day. But to start questioning his legacy, to me, even going into this finals, it sort of doesn't make any sense to me. Either you're great or you're not. Like,
I mean, I could argue the fact that this championship proves that LeBron is better than, not saying that he is, but you could argue that this championship proves that he's better than MJ and he's better than Kobe. And here's why. Both those guys, Kobe and MJ, they won their championships and their titles with just one team. LeBron did that with 3 different teams. He did that everywhere he went. He was able to win a championship for that city or for that team. So you could definitely argue the fact that this even excel his status more. So yeah, I don't get it why people would say this would hurt him. But for sure, I think it helps him. I think it proves that he's an all-around great basketball player. and he can deliver a championship to whichever city or team he plays for.
Of course, right.
You know, it's always when it comes to LeBron or it comes to stuff like that, there's always an excuse as to why he isn't the best player or why he isn't this or why he isn't that. You know, he chases rings. He does this, he does that. You know what I mean? He's playing in a soft league right now, this and that. You know, there's always an excuse when it comes to LeBron James and why he can't be the best player to ever play this game. And like you said, Marco, you know, and I hate doing it, and I don't understand why people do it in a lot of sports. They compare players to certain players from different eras. Man, Michael Jordan he played in a more physical, you know, he played in a more physical time. But that doesn't take away anything that LeBron James has accomplished in what he's done now. They never went against each other. They never did any of that. They never battled against each other. So like you said, Marco, we'll never know who is the actual better player until LeBron James's career is done. And the way he's going, he could play another 6 years, right? Until he's 42
Absolutely.
years old, and he could end up with another 3-4 titles in that time span, bringing him to 7-8 titles, which is more than what Michael's accomplished. You know what I mean? He's played a lot more games. He's done a lot more in terms of that. But I think it definitely adds to his legacy in terms of being in the conversation for the best player in the entire world, in terms of for every era. But that's a conversation for a different podcast, a different day, a different year, because you know that's something that everybody is talking about in terms of that. But it definitely expands his legacy. You know, another Finals MVP. You know, and he said it in his speech. He wants some respect on his name. You know what I mean? He wants to get the respect that he thinks he should. What do you guys think about his comments like that? Like, what do you think about what he said there at the end when he won his MVP there?
Okay, so now this is going to contradict everything that I said, because that part I don't understand, right? No, but hear me out. Follow me on this. If you're great, why do you need to ask for respect? That's the part that I don't get. And I think, and this is, I know we're not going to get into this right now. This is where we sort of start separating the MJ versus LBJ and stuff like that. Because now, mind you, Michael Jordan was an assassin. He was ruthless. He was a jerk. He was tough to play with and against, right? But correct me if I'm wrong, because we all saw the Last Dance. He never asked for respect. He never said, now give me my respect. He just went out there and slit your throat and then watched you bleed to death. Sorry to be so graphic, but that's just what it is. So in that very same speech, LBJ says, I want my damn respect. But then he says that all he cares about is what his teammates and his coaches think. So which one is it? You're great, dude. And this is my point. His legacy doesn't have to be re-cemented or reevaluated based on 3 or 4 championships. He's already there. And I just don't understand, and this is perhaps what rubs people the wrong way sometimes about LBJ, is sometimes the way he approaches things. And maybe this is 2020 and this is the way the new generation talks, and et cetera, et cetera. But I just don't get why such a great player, arguably a quote unquote, GOAT, has to say, now I want my damn respect. Who's disrespecting you? Who? What? I don't understand. What's the problem?
You see, this is exactly where I don't give LeBron any respect, because, I'm gonna explain. I'm gonna explain.
I don't
why.
even know where this is going. Okay,
I'm gonna explain why. Let me break it down for you. When we talk about, to your point, Marco, when we talk about MJ, when we talk about Kobe, if you ever see them doing an interview and the interviewer asks them about being the GOAT, the greatest of all time, right away they shut it down. They say, that's for you to discuss. That's not a title that I'm going to give to myself. That's what MJ and Kobe does.
Even though they know they are.
Even though they know they are.
Yes.
Every interview that I've seen, when it comes to the GOAT conversation, they're very humble. But LeBron James now, and this is why I don't give him the respect in this regard. LeBron James now is the self-proclaimed king. He's a self-proclaimed GOAT. He's like, oh, that's when I know I was the GOAT. Like, bro, chill. You need to be humble and you need to let the people decide this for you. This is not something you. It's not something you give yourself. You don't crown yourself king. You don't call yourself the GOAT. This is what the people. This is what the media does. This is what your fans does. This is what your peers does. Your peers do. You don't. This is not a title for you to give to yourself. And this is why I can't respect LeBron in that regard.
I'm gonna counteract your point in terms of that, because I do remember him being asked that question twice after the finals, and he shut them down. He said it in terms of, he did elaborate on it, but he did say, that's for you guys to decide, not for me to decide.
So he was backpedaling, basically.
He said it before he made all those comments.
We've always seen him self-proclaiming king and GOAT.
No, but I'm just saying in terms
prior
of, like,
to the final.
he was asked before, like when he won the MVP. I believe it's Rachel Nichols, whoever did
Rachel Nichols
asked him the question about, does this make you one of the greatest of all time, blah blah blah, whatever, and he said, that's for you guys to decide. And he kind of didn't say it, yeah, I am or I'm not, whatever. And then he kind of elaborated on, give Frank Vogel his respect, the Lakers, blah, blah, blah. He said it after the fact. And then another interview when he was with Anthony Davis, they asked him the same question. And again, he gave the same answer where, that's for you guys to decide. That's for the media, the fans, all you guys to decide at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, he does do that, though. He does talk. He says one thing and then does the other. You can't, like Marco said, you can't say, that's for you guys to decide, and then throw into it and say, well, I want my respect. Well, okay, you have my respect. You have most NBA fans' respect. I think he's more talking to the haters who just don't want to see past Michael Jordan's six wins, Kobe's victories. They don't want to see past that. I think he's more talking to them, but he shouldn't have to. He shouldn't have to talk to them, because his legacy speaks for itself in what he's been able to accomplish in his career. He's changed the game of basketball in this era in terms of what this game has become. He's got 4 finals MVPs, 4 MVPs, 4 titles. The list goes on and on in terms of the accolades that LeBron James has garnered. But he doesn't need the respect of the entire world, because you're not going to change the opinion of people who are diehard Michael Jordan fans, diehard Kobe fans, diehard Johnson fans. You're not going to change those people.
No, you're not.
So
you're
just
right.
Speak your facts in terms of, we already know who you are and what you bring to the table. And like to Mark's point, be a little more humble about it, in the sense of, just, yeah, you know what? That's for you guys to decide. You guys figure it out at the end of the day. I don't need to talk about it. Yeah, you could say, give Frank Vogel his respect, give the Lakers their respect, give this team the respect, whatever the case is. But don't ask for respect for yourself, because that's going to make people not respect you, and even more because you're asking for it.
Respect isn't given, bro. It's
earned, exactly.
And I think he's earned it, and I don't think he needs to ask for it.
Exactly.
Unless we are misinterpreting what he was trying to get at. To me, it was, and yes, I know that after winning a championship, it's an emotional time, but LeBron James is a calculated person, right? So he knows exactly what he's going to say and when and to who, right? So
no, of course.
I that part I completely don't get, because you're literally, like, you retire today, you're going into the Hall of Fame, like, right, just walk right in.
Yep.
Nobody is
First
arguing
ballot.
that fact. Like, don't even do a ballot. Just go. Just walk in and just sit down and just go.
Yeah.
Right. But anyways, I don't understand it. In saying that, LeBron James to the Raptors in 2022.
No, I don't want to watch king here, man.
No, he doesn't have to be the king. He can be like a prince.
You guys,
Well,
somebody's going to start that in a year and a half.
Right? For sure, you're going to see LeBron in a Raptors jersey meme somewhere.
Somebody already has it in a draft in a Word document somewhere.
I mean, if he's proven that he can deliver a championship everywhere he goes. So I mean, hey, LeBron, if you want to come to Toronto and give us another championship here, I'm not gonna oblige.
Right? Forget Kawhi and dine. Eat like a king. That's it. We'll change it. There you go. See? There you
It
go.
already has
Do
a
we
tagline.
have? Isn't there a restaurant called King's Buffet?
I mean, it could be. Yeah, there probably is. But I don't know if Burger King has kind of coined that or not. But anyways, I'm saying it now. If it's not, hey, you heard it here first.
Like a king.
I
Eat
feel
like
like
a
we're
king.
now just trying to get free food and stuff.
Hey, free
I
food's
thought-
always good food.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought
true.
Marcus Smart was the king of the North, though. Too
Where?
soon?
Where?
Too soon.
King of what North? Like, what the hell are you talking about? North Boston? Like, that's about it. He ain't no king of no North.
And then he
Yes.
went down south and became the bitch of the South.
Wow.
Jeez.
Whoa.
Whoa, that's
Whoa.
that escalated very quickly.
There's kids watching this stuff.
Right? Exactly.
Are there? Sorry,
No.
kids.
Moving from one legacy to another legacy that's starting, whatever, finishing, or it's in the midst of a legacy or growing legacy. Jimmy Butler. This playoffs has kind of turned a lot of people's attention to Jimmy Butler and to what he could actually become going forward. What do you guys think about how Jimmy performed in the playoffs, in the bubble, everything like that?
Contract well spent by the Miami Heat, right? He
Yeah.
he made on his promise. He didn't. I mean, he couldn't finish it, but I don't think it's fair for me to even say he couldn't finish it. They couldn't finish it. They ran into a juggernaut in the LA Lakers, a team of that was destined to win a championship for various reasons, other than they had two elite stars on their roster. But we've talked about this before a few times in different episodes that the perception of Jimmy Butler has changed in a matter of 8 months, right? Where Jimmy Butler was a villain, now he is a guy who is like, man, I wish that we had that guy in our team, right? Like it's funny. Now, winning cures a lot of things, right? Winning sort of covers a lot of tendencies and character traits that you may or may not have. But to me, I think Jimmy Butler has to be now discussed, and I'm not going into this elite stuff or not. Maybe I am, but if we're talking top 10 players, I don't think that we can exclude the Butler anymore. Whether he was there or not before, I think that he was in and out of that conversation, and not based on his play, but based on things that we, heard or maybe saw or read. But I mean, he did exactly what what he said he was trying to do, and he was a leader, right? He did it all for a team that fairly young, right? And went up against a better team. And listen, he's got 3 years left, I believe, or 4 years left on that contract. I don't know if he finishes that contract out, but I don't know. I think this is money well spent and probably underpaid now if you really think about it, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm Philadelphia, I'm Minnesota, I'm Chicago, it's like that's the one that got away.
Definitely the one that got away from Philly. I mean, 2019, 2020 Jimmy Butler is next level Jimmy Butler. I'm going to refer to him as Butler 2.0, new and improved. I mean, I reiterate everything that you just said, Marco, and I think we touched on this the last episode too. He's just it's interesting to see how he's just developed in a whole new player. He was always a good player, but again, as I said before, I'm not sure if it's just Miami that agrees with him, or he's just more mature now and knows exactly what he wants and what he needs to do to win games and be that elite player. But he's just spectacular, man. He's just an all-around great player, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, we've said it already on our multiple podcasts here, the maturation of Jimmy Butler that we've seen going to Miami. And a lot of that has to do with, I think Eric Spoelstra, Pat Riley.
Culture.
That's got to take into some consideration into what Jimmy Butler has done. He's also now to be 100% in looking at it in that way. He's a de facto leader. He's the guy that those guys are looking up to. the Duncan Robinsons, the Bam Adebayos, the
Hero.
Tyler Heroes, all those players are looking up to Jimmy Butler and what he can do and how he leads this team. And we saw that in the playoffs and what he was able to do. He talked about it before he entered the bubble, while he was in the bubble, that it was a business trip, that he wanted to go and make it to the NBA Finals and win an NBA title. They came short of that, but he accomplished one goal, and that was making it to the NBA Finals. And he turned a lot of heads, especially mine. You know, there was a lot of talk before him going to Miami that he was a cancer on a lot of teams. But he showed that, you know, maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was a lot of the other guys that were on those teams that just weren't meshing with him, just weren't gelling with him because of the way he plays, the way he is, the way how his tenacity, his heart, and his level of, you know, he takes things a lot harder than a lot. He expects a lot out of his team.
He's a matter of fact guy, right? And in this generation, I don't know, it's not like an old guy, but there are some players, not this generation, it's not fair to say. There's some players that can't take matter of fact guys or players, right? And sometimes when you say what you mean, right, and you mean what you say, it's taken back as, whoa, he's being abrasive and aggressive. But again, going back and sorry to cut you off, like a lot of the players, former players, maybe one or two here, have not really had bad things to say about Jimmy Butler. But again, maturation of Jimmy Butler, I think, is the best way to describe what has happened in this bubble, in this last, you know, this pandemic and stuff like that, and how he's become a player that you cannot ignore when you're talking about great players in this league.
Yeah, we're talking, you know, we actually saw Jimmy Buckets out there. That's who we saw out there for this in this playoffs. But it was more than just Jimmy Buckets. It was a guy that it was more Jimmy the leader. You know, he led that team to sort of almost to the promised land. You know, they were 2 games away from winning an NBA title in his first year with Miami, something he wasn't able to do with Philadelphia, Chicago, or Minnesota. So next year, if Pat Riley could bring in another superstar, bring in another big name player to help offset the load of Jimmy Butler and add to possibly make it a big 3 with Butler, the new superstar, and Bam Adebayo, I think the Miami Heat, if they could get that done, will be a hard team to beat next season.
You know what I think contributes to Jimmy's improvement or maturity too, and it just came to mind. It could be respect. It could be the respect that he has for Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley, because these are championship leadership that he has now, and he probably just has more respect for these guys than he did in Minnesota. No, you see what I'm saying? So it could just be the respect factor that improved who the player he's become.
Fair. I mean, I don't know if that says more about Jimmy than it says about the organizations prior to that, right? Which is your point exactly. But I think there's a connection there. And again, I keep going back to what Shannon said. It's a maturation, right? That you realize where you belong and how you fit in. And let's face it, guys, Pat Riley, the way he has built teams, the way he coached before as well. If you really look at the history of Pat Riley teams, they're all pretty much built exactly the same, right? Hard to play against, no nonsense. This is the way we're going to do it. It's sort of like, you know, it's, I don't want to compare it, but it's sort of like it's a culture thing, like the Patriots do it, right? It's the Miami Heat way, the Miami Heat culture, and there's a Patriots way, and there's a certain way that when you come into this building, you're going to do it this way. And a guy like that, to your point, maybe this is exactly what he needed. He needed somebody else to tell him, this is the way we're going to do it, instead of going to a gong show, an organization that hasn't won in years, like Chicago, organization that doesn't even belong maybe in the league in Minnesota, and Philly. I'm not even going to say anything on Philly, but, you know, they're still trying to figure stuff out. And the way he plays his character, maybe that's what they needed. They needed somebody that was actually more closer to Jimmy Butler, and which is, you know, a guy in Pat Riley, and a coach that can coach in Eric Spoelstra.
I'm glad and I'm happy to see Jimmy finally finds a team that he fits. and that it's working out for him. Because if he continued the way he in the trend he was, he would have been the laughing stock of the league. So it's good to see that he finally fits somewhere, and he's basically turned around the reputation that he had.
I know a guy in a certain city that won a championship last year that had a reputation of a guy who maybe wasn't a leader, maybe was hard to deal with, and couldn't win in the playoffs and couldn't get it done. And now he's being
Yeah,
talked about one, if not the greatest Raptor of all time. You know the name. Put some
yeah,
respect on that. Just saying.
true.
Yeah, Eric Spoelstra is not no Brett Brown,
Wow.
That's definitely true. Facts.
right?
Shout out to
Facts.
Australia. Oh, wait, no, he quit. Never mind.
Too soon.
Right?
Definitely
They
too
mate.
soon.
Yeah.
Speaking of coaches, the coaching carousel, it continues. New Orleans Pelicans have been looking for a coach for a little bit of time here. Stan Van Gundy has emerged as one of the top candidates to take over the job as the New Orleans Pelicans. What do you guys think? If the Pelicans went that route and signed Stan Van Gundy as the coach, what do you think of that signing as coach for the Pelicans?
I think it's for the team that they have, the young team that they have, a guy who's a teacher, sort of the same way I looked at it as far as, Doc Rivers. I thought it would have been a good fit there because of a teaching, not because of his track record as far as winning or lack thereof. I think this is a smart move if, in fact, it does happen. Not necessarily a long-term, solution. Sometimes you need a bridge coach to get you to the certain level, and then until somebody else takes over. We saw it in this very city, right? And we've seen it in other city and other sports. Listen, if I'm the Pelicans, I don't let Van Gundy leave without a contract. I'm not sure if they're doing a Zoom call or they're flying him into the Big Easy, but get it done with Zion and Ingram and Ball and all those young kids that they have, and add in some more veteran leadership. I think this will be a great fit for this team. What does that mean for them in the future as far as next year? We don't know yet because the West is stacked, right? But in order for them to compete and learn how to win and take that next step, right? I think this is the right idea. Whether it results in the right move, we'll have to discuss that in another podcast if and when it happens.
Yeah, I agree. I think Pelicans should just get it done. Van Gundy is probably the best option that's available out there for them right now. As to your point, Marco, with a young team and someone that can come in and provide great leadership and to the young guys there. I completely agree. I think it would be, if it does happen, it would be a great call, great decision for the Pelicans, and he definitely can or would be that guy or that coach to get them to a certain point for a certain period of time.
Yep.
Yeah, we've seen it before with Stan Van Gundy. He's been able to take younger teams and build them into better teams, get them playing systems, get them playing a little better basketball. And he's got a plethora of young talent to work with. It's not like the cupboard's bare. They're just going to get throwing a bunch of misfits together. You mentioned it: Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball. The list goes on. There's a lot of young talent in that organization that Stan Van Gundy has a chance to work with and turn into really good players. And hopefully that's what, if this is the case and he does sign there, I think it's a good move for the Pelicans in terms of whether it's a bridge deal and somebody else comes in and takes over the reins at the end of the day. But signing Stan Van Gundy is never a bad thing in terms of his experience and his leadership as a coach. So I think the New Orleans Pelicans would be right and to sign him to a contract and not let him go to any other team.
Yeah. And I think we all, as NBA fans, want to see the Pelicans succeed in some sort of way, right? Not to be bandwagon, but to actually watch them grow and see what they can become. Sort of like what Denver has done over the last 4 or 5 years, or 3 years or so, right? Like you see that progression, right? And I think that the Pelicans are, and sort of that line right there that, next year maybe they can contend again for the 8th seed or whatever. Hopefully it happens next year. and then sort of gradually get there. But again, they have their work cut out for them because that West is stacked. And, there's a wild card team here, not really a wild card, but the Golden State Warriors are going to come back. They're going to want their playoff spot back, right? You're going to have two.
They're going to come and demand that respect.
Right. There you go. So it's not going to get any easier in the West, right? I'm sure that there's a team that's going to come down. So there's always an opportunity to slot yourself. And I think that the Pelicans are, on the right path to getting to where they need to be for the next few years. And hopefully for their sake and for their fans' sake, the hiring of a decent coach is the start of a good thing for them.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's if that's the way they go, it's a great decision for them.
For sure. Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Basketball Lab podcast. Thanks for joining us this week on the Basketball Lab podcast. Make sure to follow us on our social media. You could follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the B-Ball Lab. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Basketball Lab podcast, and you could also find us on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music.